With the new volume of RWBY comes a new opening to analyze, and I gotta say, Volume 9's opening is easily my favorite out of all of the openings we've gotten so far. Casey knocked it out of the park with the lyrics, and the visuals of the opening are fantastic. The way that they incorporated the fairy tale and storybook feel, how a number of the images tie together as if you're flipping a page or looking at a panoramic view of an image, just the way that it is set up is fantastic, and oh boy, does it hint at a lot to come in this volume. Starting off in the opening, we're of course passing through the void as we are entering the Ever After, the same void that Team RWBY, Jean, and Neo went through when they fell off of the crossroads. But the first characters that we see in the opening as we are going through this void are actually Jean and Neo. That says a lot to me. The fact that Jean and Neo are the first characters that we see in this opening, considering we haven't even seen them in the first episode, tells me that their stories are going to be the most influential and impactful to the overall story of Volume 9, even though Team RWBY's story and the struggles that they are going to go through, in particular RWBY herself, as we'll get into in this opening analysis, they are going to be the main story. But Jean and Neo's story in the background are going to be, I think, the most impactful. Jean having tears in his eyes from the struggles that he had to go through at the end of Volume 8 and the actions that he had to take in the crossroads, taking Penny's life and the frustration that he must feel easily visible on his face. And at the same time, Neo, with the frustration that she feels, the anger for being betrayed yet again, for being just a tool used by Cinder. Both of these characters are feeling likely the strongest emotions as they fell into the Ever After, and I think that is going to be very influential to their overall story and the changes that are going to take place in Volume 9. Next we see Blake, Weiss, and Yang, looking fairly confident. And lastly, we see RWBY, who looks a bit dejected, alone in her own panel. And I gotta say, the kind of pastel shadow view of each of the characters is excellent for this opening. I really like what they've done for the visuals, and if this is what we're going to see throughout Volume 9, this type of thing, I'm really looking forward to it. But the images that we see of each of the characters is as they are passing through the void, and then we get an image of the tree as light comes crashing down behind it. Likely this being every one of the characters entering into this world. And then, of course, we get the title sequence, RWBY Volume 9, and a particular 2 different shades of blue forming a mist and coming down to the ground as well. And that particular shade of blue does seem to be similar to Jinn and Ambrosius, the spirits of the relics. Now, I don't think that the last 2 relics of Destruction and Choice are going to be in the Ever After, but you know, this really does indicate that the relics are going to have something to do with this world, considering that it was Ambrosius and the in-between world that he created that allowed Team RWBY, Jean, and Neo to get transported to this world. Well, the relics are probably going to have some influence on that, and I'll probably be making a video on that throughout this week. Moving on to the next part of the opening, though, and what is very likely the most impactful portion for Team RWBY as a whole, we see each of the characters kind of traveling through the time that we have known them. We see them each in their Volume 1 outfits, then we see them each in their Volumes 4 to 6 outfits, and then we see them in their Volumes 7 to 9 outfits. And we see the looks on their faces, how Weiss, Blake, and Yang go from less confident at the beginning and slowly gaining confidence until they get to their Volume 9 version, till they get to their current selves. Each of them looking very confident, the emblems that are shown behind them getting brighter with each image. In contrast to RWBY, who in Volumes 1 to 3 was her most confident. Her emblem is shining brightly, but with each passing year, or each passing kind of era that she travels through, Volumes 1 to 3, 4 to 6, and 7 to 9, the emblem grows dimmer. She becomes less confident, and the image that we see of her is moving further to the back, whereas with Weiss, Blake, and Yang, it was moving further to the front of the screen. RWBY is receding into herself. She is becoming less confident, whereas Weiss, Blake, and Yang are becoming more confident, more sure of themselves. RWBY doesn't know what to do. And the lyrics that accompany this are very impactful. Sinking down into the depths of nowhere, I am undone. Clasping tight onto memories I know, they'll be overrun. The memories of who they once were will be overrun by the memories of who they are now, their current memories shaping who they are. And RWBY's positive outlook that she had in volumes 1 to 3 is being overwritten by all of the experiences that she's had up until this point, and these struggles are culminating in volume 9. And after Ruby's image, we see the image of another girl kind of overshadow Ruby's. This girl likely being Alice from Wonderland, or rather Alex in this story. And Ruby we see in silhouette with tears falling from her eyes. She doesn't want to lose who she is, but things have already changed her, and this world is going to change her even more. And again with the lyrics, after it says that their memories will be overrun, the pre-chorus then goes on to say, by a girl, we must live with balance, but balance is blind. So, is that in saying that her memories are going to be overwritten by a girl, overwritten by this Alex character, overwritten by Alice in Wonderland? This is Wonderland after all. Things can get pretty crazy, and I think this is heavily implying that Ruby herself is Alex, or Ruby is the Alice in Wonderland character. But she's not exactly the only one, as we'll see later on in this opening. After this, though, we see a number of the characters that we're going to interact with throughout Volume 9. We see Little and the rest of the mice, we see the raccoon peddler, as well as the blacksmith, who's easily confirmed to be a blacksmith at this point, considering she seems to be forging a sword, perhaps a Vorpal sword for the nameless knight who's going to be slaying the Jabberwock? Maybe. And then we see what is very likely the Queen of Hearts at this point, as she's lording over the rest of her, well, chess piece soldiers, and what looks to be in the back of the eyes that appear is the Cheshire Cat, so we know that the Cheshire Cat kind of had no affiliation in Alice in Wonderland, was kind of a being of kind of chaos in and of itself, so I don't know if the Cheshire Cat's necessarily going to be allied with one side or another, or just playing both sides, but it does seem to kind of imply that maybe the Cheshire Cat is possibly on the Queen of Hearts side. We'll see. And then we see Team RWBY as they are traveling through the different areas of the world that we will likely see. And it flips in a storybook style setting, going from Team RWBY following the shadow of Alex. They flip to the next page. Weiss, Blake, and Yang are walking a little bit faster, and Ruby's starting to lag behind. As it flips to the next area, well, now Weiss, Blake, and Yang are at a jog, and RWBY is moving even slower. And in the final frame, sprinting is Weiss, Yang, and Blake after the shadow of Alex. But RWBY is not. She is very slow. She is being left behind. The rest of her team is outpacing her along with the shadow of Alex. Does this imply that if Alex is the girl who fell through the world and made it back to her own world, is that implying that Weiss, Blake, and Yang do want to go home, follow the path that Alex took, but RWBY is unsure? She doesn't know what she can accomplish. There's definitely going to be some confidence issues that RWBY is going to have to go through in this volume, and I don't know exactly how she will come out of it at the end. But the lyrics here continue. We must live with balance, but balance is blind. Lost her world, vengeance is a riptide. In a fairy tale she'll find. The vengeance she'll find in a fairy tale? That certainly sounds like Neo, doesn't it? She's the one who's out for vengeance in this world. Team RWBY and Jean, maybe Jean, but that'd be vengeance against his former self for being too weak to protect others, which is probably going to play a factor, but Neo definitely seems like the one who's out for vengeance. And at the end of that little sequence, we do see the caterpillar, who seems to also be crossed with the butterfly. I know in the Alice in Wonderland story it was the caterpillar that eventually turned into a butterfly, but this looks like a caterpillar that has the upper body of a butterfly with wings, so it's some amalgamation of the two, and still seems to be smoking hookah in this picture, so we'll see what role the caterpillar plays in this story. But, you know, since I've mentioned Jean previously, now we get to one of the most interesting scenes with Jean. We see him standing looking very solemn looking, very down on himself. Again, as I mentioned, given everything he's been through, this is completely understandable. And he's also likely very alone in this world, so, you know, a lot that he's going to be going through. But we see him standing in front of a background with a bunch of blacked out circles. And then the frame shifts. Jean becomes the one that is covered in shadow, and clock faces become visible. And these clock faces are most certainly hinting at Jean's overall plight that he's going to go through in Volume 9. My guess, since time is a character in Through the Looking Glass, I think time may have stopped for Jean. If we look at the clock faces, we see that the time is stopped on every one of them at 2 o'clock. But not just 2 o'clock, it's 2 o'clock and 50 seconds. And I don't think that second hand can progress any further. Because if we look at the numbers on the clock, they're in Roman numerals. 1 to 10 are fine, but 11 is missing. Instead, it is replaced with XII, which is 12. The same that is the next number on the clock. So 12 appears twice, and 11 doesn't appear at all. I don't know the exact relevance that would have to the Alice in Wonderland or Through the Looking Glass story, so if you know, let me know down in the comments, but I think with 11 missing, the clock can't actually progress from 10 to 11, because it would only go 10 to 12. That's not how numbers work. Granted, again, nonsense world, perhaps things work differently there, but I think time has stopped for Jean, and that's why he's become the Nameless Knight. Speaking of nonsense, though, we then see all of Team RWBY as they're working their way through a labyrinth where gravity doesn't seem to apply. The paths are twisting and turning, going upside down, sideways, and all the way around. And then we see RWBY standing on a bridge, and as she looks across, she sees Alice, or Alex, and as Alex turns, it turns into a maniacal version of herself, grinning wildly. It is worth pointing out that we've seen this background before, of the clouds and the bridge, back in the Volume 9 trailer with Yang and Blake. Though it does seem that Blake is handling the situation a little bit better than RWBY, considering Blake has a peaceful smile, not one of madness that this other version of RWBY has. But this does seem to indicate that this overall trial of madness may be one that every character will have to go through. And the lyrics to accompany this are very important as well. Inside, a new me. I'm ready. But who will I find? Inside, I've got to let go. But could I lose my mind? Our worlds unwind. These are the last lyrics in the opening, but there are a couple more to the overall song that I'll touch on at the end of the video, but this is obviously saying that each of them will change throughout this volume. They're going to find a new version of themselves. Still, be likely the same person that we've come to know from the first 8 volumes of the show, but they're going to have to grow and going to have to change. RWBY in particular. Inside a new me you'll find. Could that be that the memories of Alex are going to start, interfering with RWBY as well? Maybe insecurities or something to do with this world, the memories of a person who was there previously are going to affect and interact with certain emotionally unstable characters in this volume. There's plenty that we don't know about the Ever After and the way that things work in this volume, so, things are definitely going to change. But RWBY definitely looks like she's caught maybe a bit of madness when she turns around. Because the madness does spread in Alice in Wonderland, which is very indicative as we see the next character, who is the Mad Hatter herself, Neapolitan, who is sitting at a tea party. And behind her appear a lot of shadows. Likely people from her past. I've seen a lot of people surmising that the person in the center directly behind her is Roman Torchwick, so can we see Roman again in Volume 9? I hope so. And then the other 2 people standing right next to the supposed Roman character in the middle is her parents, her mother and father, the family that she once had when she used to be Trivia Vanille. And if you want to learn more about that and who exactly Trivia is, I'll link the Roman holiday breakdown in the corner up above. But essentially, Neapolitan was born as Trivia Vanille, but took the name Neapolitan later on in life. And Neo, I think, is at the center of everything in the Ever After as we start to move into the most impactful part of the opening. Next we see the Jabberwalker, as was revealed in the first episode. It is a being based on the Jabberwock, and considering Neo's image faded into this one, I wonder if the Jabberwock is a creation of Neo's. And perhaps maybe more things are as well. But the Jabberwalker fades into a book that lights on fire, and then we see the image of the Nameless Knight in those same flames. And to me this implies, for sure, that the Knight is going to be the one to fight the Jabberwock. But considering the story is burning, maybe that means the story is going to change or the story will cease to exist. Which I am starting to think that at the end of Volume 9, the Ever After will cease to exist, that it is a fabricated world of some sort, which is indicated by the last couple scenes that we see in this opening. We see Team RWBY as they are trying to climb the tree, trying to find that way to escape. They slip and fall, and you see RWBY falling through the world. The girl who fell through the world, really. And she's falling through the different panoramic views of the characters that we're going to see. We see the knight and a large rabbit, likely the March Hare. We see the Red Queen and her soldiers. We see Alice, or Alex, and the Cheshire Cat. We see the caterpillar. We see the blacksmith, who, as a lot of people were theorizing, does look to be completely mechanical, at least in this image, made of bronze almost, and you can see like the metal plating in her own body. And then we see the Jabberwocker reaching up, and at the bottom we see Neapolitan. And her image fades to show Alex, the girl who fell through the world. The girl from the fairy tale was in pretty much the same pose as Neo, again implying that Neo might also be Alex, or the Alice equivalent for this Wonderland, the ever after that we are entering. And I think that is the role that Neo will play, both being the Mad Hatter, but also Alice. Because in the original Alice in Wonderland story, the world of madness was one of Alice's own creation. So each of these images that we see RWBY falling through, if we look at them individually, well, that's just indicating the events to come. But if we string them all together, the larger picture is revealed. And what does this show us? Well, to me, it looks like Neo is standing at the bottom, and her semblance that's creating those pink sparkles is giving rise to everything in this world. Could the ever after be a world of Neo's creation? That's kind of what this image is implying to me, and I'm going to make a video dedicated to that later this week as well, but I think Neo is going to be the most relevant character to this overarching world. And it might even be likely that this Alex character is the fractured part of Neo, that her personality did in fact fracture when she got to this world, becoming the Mad Hatter that is giving birth to all of the chaos, as well as Alice, or rather Trivia, because we know that Trivia Vanille, who Neapolitan once was, had solid brown hair. So perhaps there is a connection to be made there. That perhaps Alex and Neo could be the same person, or are going to have some connection at the very least, along with the connection that Alex is going to have to RWBY. There are a lot of things that are going to interact in this story, and I'm really curious to find out how everything is going to unfold. The very last image that we see is of Alex waking up on the beach and walking deeper into the island. But when she wakes up there, Crescent Rose is lying next to her. So that kind of implies that Alex fell either after Team RWBY did, or along the same lines. The fact that Alex woke up on the beach along with one of the weapons that fell in the crossroads does imply that they are connected. But we also see that Team RWBY is chasing after the shadow of Alex. So things are likely not going to work as we are used to in Remnant. Time may not be linear, as, you know, implied also by the background with Jean. Time is going to play some sort of factor. Maybe time's going to be distorted in different areas of the world. Maybe time is going to move faster for certain individuals versus other. And things are going to get pretty chaotic in this volume. Memories seem like they might be overwritten. Personality's going to change. And if this is a world that is of Neo's creation, or that she has great influence over, then escape is going to be interesting, to say the least. Likely going to have to confront Neo. And our main character, RWBY, might lose hope at some point or another, as hinted by the other lyrics that weren't included in the opening sequence of Volume 9. The lyrics continue, saying, "Waves of gold overwhelm my senses. A fire blooms. Why should I fight to connect with a world I cannot exhume? Trusted love, that world is ungrateful. A family estranged. Hatred won, what I'd give in exchange to be happy without trying." Considering how upset and kind of depressed that RWBY looks in this opening, she wants to be happy. She wants to be happy without having to work so hard for it. She's put so much of herself into fighting against Salem. She trusted love. Trust Love was the name of the opening song in Volume 7, and we all saw how the Atlas arc turned out. Atlas crumbled to the ground. They tried to trust in each other, trust in love, and, well, that kind of failed them. So I think RWBY might be giving up hope in this volume. Why should she try to connect with a world that she cannot save? Family estranged. Summer's gone. She still has Yang though, and as we saw in the very first episode, that connection is very important to her. And that's actually a mistake that I made during my review of episode 1 that a lot of people did point out in the comments, is that when RWBY said, "You forgot who raised us," I misinterpreted that. It's, "Then you forgot who raised me," because Summer had left. I thought she was talking about Summer Rose, the hero that they strove to be, but Summer had left at that point, and it was Yang who pretty much raised RWBY. So of course RWBY would go after her, the strong-willed older sister that she admires. So, you know, little mistake there, but still, the connection between RWBY and Yang is strong. So the family estranged bit, let me know what you think down in the comments below on that. I think that is at least referring to Summer, because RWBY still has Yang, but I think between RWBY and Yang, they're going to see things differently in this world, and Yang is going to be the more hopeful one, the one that has hope for still saving Remnant, whereas RWBY, after everything, might start to give up. And that's going to be a struggle for her as well, needing to change. Her memories might be overwritten by Alice or Alex. She might give in to the madness of this world. Maybe even, what would be interesting is if the Mad Hatter version of Neo and the RWBY who is given into madness become allies for like an episode or two. One thing I do want to point out here at the end of the video, though, is that the entirety of the lyrics that are present in this opening could just apply to Neo instead of applying to multiple characters. Estranged family? Well, Neo lost her family. A world that doesn't accept her? A world that is unforgiving, giving in to hate? Well, that's what Neo did. The world has never accepted her. The only person who did, Roman, is now gone. And she was giving into hate throughout all of the previous volumes. Wanting to be happy without trying, giving in to vengeance, and finding a new her inside of herself. She's already done that once. She was Trivia Vanille, and now she's Neapolitan. The entirety of these lyrics could be talking solely about Neo, which again would imply that this entire world is of her creation and this volume is going to be all about her, as well as the struggles that Team RWBY and Jean are going through. But we'll have to see how that plays out. I feel like every episode of Volume 9 is going to bring some new and wild twist with it. So I will be happily moving forward on this journey, and I hope you all will join me on that as well. If you like this video, want to see more like it, make sure to subscribe and join the Guild of the Eternal Flame. If you're interested in the series of No Game, No Life, make sure to subscribe to my second channel, The Daily Flugel, as it is a channel dedicated to that series, and we're going to cover every nook and cranny of it. And if you want to see some games played live, make sure to check out my Twitch channel. I stream every Tuesday and Saturday. With that being said though, I'll see you guys in the next video.